We're live.
Hi, everybody. We're here today with Think Virtual Live, John Dwoskin and I hosting, and we are here with a really incredible guest. I'm really excited about this. I have a personal relationship with Al McMordie. His wife is one of my closest friends, full disclosure, but that is not what makes him such a great guest. What makes him a great guest, and I'm going to actually, Al, welcome to the show. I'm going to introduce you by reading your bio because I don't want to miss a beat on this, and there's numbers involved, so if I don't read it, I'm going to be in trouble. So hold on. So this Al McMordie is the most honored technical handicapper in the country. Overall, in the last 28 years, Big Al has garnered 43 number one awards in football, basketball, baseball, and hockey, 195 top 5 finishes, and 368 top 10 finishes. Al is a featured handicapper at the most prestigious gambling websites and was a panelist on The Winning Edge, a Proline television show from the 2001 to 2010. Additionally, in 2002, Big Al was featured in FHM magazine and was featured in ESPN magazine in 2010. Besides for being a champion handicapper, Al McMordie is a corporate attorney and earned the undergraduate and law degree from the University of Michigan. He lives in LA. So Al, welcome to the show. We're super excited to have you. You have like every but specifically, I should make this a man dream job. So
that's what a lot of people tell me. I'm not so sure. It's a dream job. I have to work 361 days a year, as I say. So it's not an easy living.
For sure. I'm sure. I know you work hard. So I'm just going to kind of start it out, John, and you can jump in whenever.
Go.
It says that you're an attorney. I know that in your history, you started out that way in, I believe, corporate law. Can you kind of give us what's the trajectory of going from that to where you are today, and how did that happen for you?
Well, it's nothing you plan. I mean, I guess I can start back at how did I get into handicapping first, as opposed to how did I transition into the business. I started handicapping when I was about 12 years old. My father was a gambler, and he would come home with the gold sheet, and I kind of, became introduced to it then, and that was, in the late 1970s. I began seriously handicapping when I was 14 and keeping all the records and all the opening and closing point spreads. And then when I was 18, my brother gave me as a birthday gift, he was in art class at high school, and he gave me this stationery that said, Big Al's sports, handicapping is this business. And I still have the stationery today. So, I got started at an early age, but I never thought this would ever become a business. So I went to, I did the usual route. I went to undergraduate in law school at Michigan, and I was practicing law in Dallas in 1991. And another attorney who was opposite me on a deal, I don't know how he got started talking, but he told me his brother was a sports handicapper. And actually, his two brothers, one in the business was known as Pork Chop, and the other guy was known as the Bounty Hunter. So what happened, I was, practicing law, and I began calling Pork Chop's complimentary selection phone. And this was 1991, so it was very low tech, and you could leave a message at the end of his comp line, and I began leaving my opinions. And I left about 6 games for him, and as luck would have it, all 6 won over the period of a couple weeks. And I think the 6th game was actually a game you guys might remember. It was the Detroit Lions against the Cowboys in the playoffs in 1991 or 92. And that was the only game that Detroit had won in the Super Bowl era in the playoffs. They beat Dallas 38-6. And, Pork Chop was in Texas. I was working in Dallas. So everyone down there thought Dallas was going to win. So when I told him Detroit was going to win, at that point, he became a believer. And then he went on his comp line that week, and he didn't know who I was. I would leave the selections anonymously. And he said, there's this guy who keeps leaving me plays. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to call him the Phantom. And he says, Phantom, would you call me? I want to talk to you. So I ended up calling Pork Chop. And, he was one of the best marketers I ever met. And so what he did was he decided this would be a great way to drum up business. So he had a Beat the Phantom contest. And then over the next 2 Saturdays, he told me just pick 15 games, college basketball, and I'm going to give away free service to anyone who can beat you. And it was just a way to get him to have his phone ring.
Mhm.
And so he had about 40 people call in the next 2 Saturdays to see if they could beat the family. And I think one Saturday I went 12-3. The other Saturday I went 11-4, and maybe 3 or 4 guys each week were able to do better. And, they got a free week of service. But that's how it started. And the crazy thing about it is, all the games I gave him over that, month period, they went something like 6-0 in football, then 23-7 in basketball. So 29-7 combined, and the chances of doing that is, south of 1%. So, it all kind of worked out that then he called me and said he wanted to put me in business. And so I was practicing law, and I said, no, I'm not going to be a sports handicapper. And so he kept at it for about a month. And finally I relented, and I just said, fine, just go get a 900 line. I'll do it. Just leave me alone. And so we split the profits for a few months, and then, it wasn't great money. It was just more of a hobby than anything else. And then after about 3 or 4 months, I went out on my own. I said, I don't need to split the profits with Pork Chop. I can go get my own 900 line. And so I did that. And then that's how I got into the business. And like I said, it was just a hobby. It gave me some, couple extra $100 here and there, to spend. So I did that for about 3.5 years, where it was just a side gig. And then I was working in Bethesda, Maryland at the time. I moved from Dallas to Bethesda. And what happened was I was changing apartments, and I needed to get a new phone line in the new apartment on a Friday because I had a big game in football going on that Saturday. And this was 1995. And so the woman from Bell Atlantic came out to the new residence, and she was going to install a phone line. Except one thing happened. She was unable to figure out how to install it. She couldn't find the wires. And I to this day, I didn't understand that. So I panicked. And this was literally the first week that mobile phones became available in the country. Sprint had just opened up their first Sprint PCS store in, DuPont Circle. So I panicked. I ran down to the Sprint PCS store, and I bought a mobile phone. And I figured, well, it's $200 or whatever it was. I'll make it back by selling my, game of the month on Saturday. And so what happened over the next month was something that I never could have imagined. For the previous 3.5 years when I ran the business, it was like anything back then. I would go off to work during the week. I'd come home, check the answering machine, see if anyone left a message. As it turned out, nobody was ever leaving messages because it's gambling, and they don't want to leave their work number. They don't want their wife to find out they're gambling. So now I've got the mobile telephone, and I go to the law firm and I do my work, and the mobile phone begins ringing while I'm at work at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And so over the month in that December, I wrote more business than I had written, generally for a 12-month period. And so, I didn't know what to do. And I remember my friend Beth told me at the time, I said, what do I do with this money? And she says, go advertise. So that's what I did. So over the month of December, I took out ads in a bunch of, local newspapers like Chicago Sun-Times, New York Daily News, USA Today. And then literally it happened so fast. Within 3 or 4 months, by the end of March Madness, I quit practice. I was done practicing law. I had a new business.
That's such a great story.
That is a great story. Yeah.
It really is. It like kind of shows a little bit of the kismet of life for you, like just this, like how everything just, you listened to what was coming and you kind of like surrendered to it and just allowed what was obviously meant to be, happen for you. And I think oftentimes we fight with what's happening so often in our lives, and you just kind of like let it go, and it worked well. So
yeah, I think that's amazing. I love that story. Al, I have a question for you. So, you're looking at stats and you're looking at trends all day. I mean, when it comes to sports, but you're a business, but all businesses are always looking at stats and trends and trying to forecast and predict and, looking at all the indicators and, just get it right. And right now we're kind of in a situation just from a business perspective where, if anybody had forecasted the trends of what was going on and happening these last 9 months, they couldn't do it. And so I really would like to kind of get inside your mind with how you kind of calculate all these numbers. I mean, you're doing what you do, but all businesses can learn from this. when you're looking at stats and you're looking at trends, how does your mind work? Like what highlights in your head, and what do you look for? What type of rhythms and patterns do you look for when you're doing your line of work?
Well, you also have to separate the two things. I mean, it's one thing to handicap a football game or a basketball game and look for patterns and trends there, which is completely different from running a business.
No question. But I think there's still some things to learn.
Well, every handicapper is different. For me, I'm very much a kind of a contrarian, or I look for things that aren't necessarily intuitive. So I'm always looking for patterns about, if a team has failed to cover the point spread in, 8 of 10 games this season, I'm more apt to bet on that team than bet against them as a starting point.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to go against the hot team in sports for the most part, or go with the cold team. It's just the way I think, kind of like a buy low, sell high method. But every handicapper is different. Some handicappers do things completely differently than I do, but I've had success that way. I think you're never as good as your last game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that you, I'm sure by design, have worked as a solopreneur. So you don't have like a big team behind you. It's you and you alone, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I mean, I've got a website, bigowl.com, and there's 20 handicappers, including myself, who sell picks at the website. So
got it.
I've got one of the better sports handicapping platforms in the country. There's probably about 5 or 6 major platforms where handicappers can sell and make money, and I have one of the big platforms. And so a lot of handicappers want to be at bigowl.com to sell picks because it's got a pretty big audience.
Okay. So I guess I didn't really understand that. But as far as like running the business, the day-to-day of the business, it's kind of on you. You're working 361 days a year, as you say. And I guess I wonder, is that by design? Have you, and I'm asking this question because our podcast is about Think Virtual and virtual teams and working in this virtual world. Have you, it was by design that you're working by yourself, kind of in a way, and is there ever a thought to getting a virtual team involved in this and helping free up some of that time for you?
For those wondering where I get 361 days, I do get 4 days off during the baseball all-star break, but that's it. But no, it's my wife would love me to be able to delegate and to have people help me out on the business. It's just not as practical as I have to do the handicapping myself. I have to make the decisions about which team to release. I do delegate some things, but it's very difficult to delegate the major things in my business because so much of it involves, research, processing the information, and making a decision.
Sure.
And that's much of the time. So I have to do that myself.
Sure.
As people, Al, go to your websites, and whether they're buying picks or they're part of the subscription model, I'd love to talk about your model of how you not only provide your services but also market your services. So I mean, you're creating. I mean, we're in the world right now where e-commerce is more important than ever before. Gambling on the internet is legal in many places now, where many years ago it wasn't. And so how are you kind of looking at your business, worldwide business, when it comes to marketing, whether it's, somebody buying the picks or somebody buying the subscription model?
Well, for the first part of the business, from 1992 through 1999, as far as marketing, it was like any other business. You would take out print media ads, and that's how I built the business. In 1999, all of a sudden the print media dried up. The internet came along, and all the usual courses of advertising, went away. I remember I was advertising with John Dobbs, who ran JD's Key in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And I always would, buy the back page of his schedule. And I remember calling him up around 1999. I said, John, I'm getting no calls anymore. And he was really cool. He just gave me I paid $10,000 for the season. He just gave me the $10,000 back. He told me, nobody's getting any calls anymore. And so at that point, the internet kind of took over. And to be honest with you, I haven't advertised in 20 years, ever since the internet.
Yeah.
I used to take out a lot of ads in print media, and the internet has been good enough to sustain business and have it be stable for 20 years. So that's the good thing about the business. But now what I'm trying to do is one of the things I didn't do over these years, I guess maybe because business was good, is I never really invested in SEO. And so I'm just starting to do that now and to try to, build the business that way and to kind of get into the 21st century. I think that was probably one of my mistakes over the last 10 years, was not taking SEO seriously.
I think
it was all, I'm sorry. So it was all really word of mouth then, advertising, besides for people finding you, if the internet sustained you before SEO and you're not advertising anywhere on the internet, then it was just kind of like organic traffic.
Yeah, it was organic. I was at other websites. So other websites did advertise, for example. So I could get it third hand, but I didn't advertise myself. So, if I'm at covers.com or if I'm at donbest.com or various other places, they could get traffic. People could see me there, and they could then end up migrating to bigal.com. And so that would happen naturally. But as far as myself, spending money to go advertise, I haven't had to do that in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think we're seeing a lot of companies in all different areas, especially with what's happened with COVID, just re-examine and kind of get back to some basics. I don't think you're alone with that. Getting into the 21st century and continuing to market yourself. I want to just go back as far as, the 361 days, because and just kind of talk about discipline for a minute, because, what you do requires so much focus, so much hyper focus, so much discipline. Getting into a career like yours requires someone from the onset to know you are in it 24/7. I mean, it's nothing you can walk in or take lightly or do kind of, 50%. And so how do you bring it? You're talking 20 years of 361 days. There's got to be some days you're like, I don't know if I got it in me. I mean, it's because I think a lot of people can learn from your discipline, consistency, and focus.
Well, one of the things is I'm also handcuffed by the nature of my job.
Yeah.
When I practice law, you would have soft deadlines. The client might say, I need this in a week, or I need this in a month, or whatever. And you can get the work done, but there would never, and if there was a hard deadline, there was a hard deadline. But with sports, the deadline is every day.
Right.
They are playing the game at 7 p.m. You have to get the work done. If you're going to have selections on that card, you have to get the work done by 7 a.m. Eastern, so the product is on the shelf so people can buy it, so that clients who have subscriptions can conveniently put in their bets, etc. So that is the main reason why I don't have any flexibility, because the deadlines are self-imposed. Every single day I have this deadline and I have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with no sports for COVID, I mean, that was like must have blown your mind, really. Did you take some time? Were you able to? And I guess, as what's your prediction for getting back into stadiums and stuff?
Well,
give that to us.
Yeah. So it was actually COVID was a silver lining. I mean, obviously it was on balance negative. We were out of work for 4.5 months when there were no sports, but I had actually started to rebuild the website and plan it and design it back around Labor Day, the previous year. So about 14 months ago. And when COVID happened, it gave me more free time to write all the content of the new website. So, we were able to eventually launch the new website September 23rd, a couple months ago. But if COVID didn't happen, maybe the launch would have been November or December instead. So it gave me a lot of time to, work on our new website. And so it turned out to be a blessing in disguise.
That's great.
But what do you think the future of stadiums are gonna and arenas are going to look like, Al?
Oh, I mean, I think we're going to be back to normal, next fall, and I think everything's going to be in the rearview mirror. I mean, that's my optimistic perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe people go to the arenas and they'll wear a mask, just like they might do, in Japan, when they've got the flu. So
yeah,
that's my perspective.
Let's hope. Do we have time for a speed round?
Yeah, take it away.
All right, you ready for a speed round?
I don't know what this involves, but sure.
It's just kind of a quick questions.
Okay.
So, favorite sport to watch personally?
San Antonio Spurs, more specifically, basketball.
Okay.
A favorite athlete of all time?
Manu Ginobili.
Your biggest mentor in your life?
Gosh, I don't really have a mentor. This was all kind of like I did this all myself and never really had one. But when I would say, I won't name his name, but when I practiced law, it would be my old law partner at the Dallas law firm I worked at.
My last question is: do you still keep in touch with Pork Chop?
No.
Pork Chop.
Not in the business anymore. Yeah, he actually had a pretty good run. He was really one of the better marketers, but he's been out of the business probably, I'd say, a good 20 years.
Got it.
Wow.
Got it.
I have one last question for you, Al. To all the sports fans out there who are graduating college right now, what is one piece of advice you would give them, moving into this type of career or, something similar?
Honestly, I would say don't go into sports because you like sports. I think a lot of people say to themselves, I'm a huge sports fan, I want to get involved in sports. I think if it happens, great. If you go to law school and you end up becoming a sports attorney, that's great. But I think it's something that's not easy to plan and not easy to succeed at. I think a lot of it is random and luck. I would say just, go the traditional route and don't necessarily try to force yourself into the sports world. That's what I would say.
That's great. Al, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. I got bigal.com.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to bigal.com, maybe click on the contact us link. My email address is bigal@bigal.com, and everything's at the website.
Thank you so much for taking the time today and early this morning to be on with us. I really enjoyed it. So best of luck with everything, and hopefully we'll all be back into the live sports very soon.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, John.
Al, thanks. I appreciate you being on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.